Good evening, tent dwellers. For new vagrants, directions and an updated points of interest chart is in the description. Monday has passed and Tuesday begins. But what all happened on Monday? We'll recount events by reading until or unless we figure something better out. In the earliest hours of the morning, Paul Norsky skulks through the fog. Between darkness and weather, shadows cast from lanterns stretch long. Hushed voices whisper and hazy silhouettes stumble around camp. Paul Norsky manages to steal $3 total from other vagrants' tents. This amount is the equivalent of working 3 shifts for Jinko, an impressive haul conducted covertly enough few notice and fewer still would begin to consider whom to blame. During Paul Norsky's spree, he overhears a pair of voices discussing the murders. The trio were murdered while privately trading pornography. The madman was murdered in a shack by the ocean. Apparently, nobody knows whom to suspect. The murders aren't what have everyone on edge. The official response does. Later in the morning, Ellis Baker familiarizes himself with his worksite. Wandering around the woods, he identifies a plant that eases aches and pains. Considering the tracks and other disturbances in the soil, he determines a few other outdoorsman vagrants discovered these herbs and are cultivating and partaking of them apart from other vagrants. He wonders why. He sees a rabbit and a few hawks, but with all the logging nearby, he can't find any larger game. He discovers evidence of deer, maybe 3, but he doesn't see them. Additionally, Ellis Baker discovers a spot at which the sounds of nature and the sounds of industry collide and create a pleasant, soothing hum in the air. Alvar Vaughn takes his chances plying his trade, music, in Squander. He borrows a guitar from a better established vagrant and promises him a cut of his earnings. The lender urges Alvar Vaughn to be careful, warning him about tension between the vagrants and the townspeople, but Alvar Vaughn is too focused on the money he'll earn to pay the lender any mind. Suckers work for the man, winners sell him amusements. After about an hour of playing in the town square, he's received nothing but dirty looks and upturned noses. Frustrated, Alvar Vaughn starts playing and singing louder and staring at pedestrians who pass him. Then a cop arrives. He smashes the guitar and shouts obscenities at the musician, threatening him with imprisonment. Then a short, portly man dressed for a safari hustles over and convinces the cop to lay off. The cop looks pleased with neither man, but he leaves. The man introduces himself as Dr. Max Bellard, owner of Little Morocco, one of the nicer bars in Squander that doubles as an outfitting shop. He gives Alvar Vaughn his card and offers him a work-as-he-pleases job playing live music at night. When Alvar Vaughn returns from Squander, the lender is pissed, but nothing happens. Alvar Vaughn intuits nothing has happened yet. Now we move to Monday afternoon. Ellis Baker joins the Jinko vagrant workforce and works a 4-hour shift logging. Foreman Benjamin Yamashita shows him the ropes, literally. Ellis Baker is assigned to securing lumber for transport on trucks. He earns $1 for his work. Alvar Vaughn, too, joins Jinko's vagrant workforce, but he works a 4-hour shift at the mill. Foreman Courtney Yamashita assigns him to moving lumber and promises the hardest, most loyal workers promote into lever pullers. He earns $1 for his work. Paul Norsky asks for and receives 2 dinner portions, country fried steak and beans, from the mess tent. He asks Chef Jiho Ren for some odd spices to improve the portions, and Ren agrees. The two briefly discuss cooking, and Paul Norsky makes a positive impression on the man. The shared dinner he's planning doesn't go as smoothly. He brings food to Mitchell, his tent neighbor directly to his left. Mitchell seems like a good guy. He helped Paul Norsky settle in when he first arrived, though few words were exchanged. Mitchell thanks Paul Norsky for the food and enjoys the improvements, but without any particular or specialist topics to discuss, Norsky fumbles his words and repeatedly asks if they can start the conversation over. Mitchell accommodates the buffoonery, but both settle into silence. Nothing of value is discussed, but a positive impression is made. And now we move into night. Ellis Baker takes his pay straight to the bar. He eats his dinner portion while enjoying a few drinks. He imbibes 25 cents worth of shit whiskey, enough to fit in, but not so much he acts foolish. He takes in the atmosphere. Among the patrons is a feeling of loss. Most vagrants swap stories about their lives before squander. Road tales, alienated friends and family, dreams. Like the waves, there are crashes of discussion followed by withdrawing silences. Some quieter groups discuss the murders, but most collectively comfort themselves by writing the trio off as consequences of not paying one's or three's debts, and the madman as a suicide. Alvar Vaughn sits alone in the bar on the floor. Like Ellis Baker, he drinks 25 cents worth of shit whiskey and eavesdrops on conversations. He hears the same stories and rumors Ellis Baker does, but Alvar Vaughn catches something another wouldn't. One sentence among hundreds that sticks out. On Saturday, one vagrant spotted a teenager around camp and thought that was odd. It is odd. Ginko doesn't hire or support minors, and all vagrants in the Hooverville fog arrive alone. Paul Norsky follows up on the leads he overheard that morning. He's groggy thanks to his odd sleep schedule, but he has enough energy to stay focused. The tent where the trio was murdered has disappeared, probably repurposed. It's quiet. Most are avoiding the spot. There are no bodies. There are no weapons, tools, goods, or anything that might have belonged to the trio. There's nothing. Paul Norsky suspects something odd about this scene but can't put his finger on it. Then he makes his way down to the beach. The almost full moon casts a lunar glow over the fog. Waves crash on the beach. Here there is nobody at all. Voices from the Hooverville fog fade into silence. The air is cool and heavy. He finds the shack among some trees. Here, too, there is nothing and no one. The shack looks almost totally untouched, a quiet, dark, decaying little thing. Inside the shack are two chairs broken over soil ground. Nothing. When Paul Norsky emerges from the shack, he sees a silhouette watching him from the trees up on a hill. He freezes. He feels the silhouette's eyes on him. He cannot make out many details, but he does notice the figure wears a suit. A nice one. Something one wouldn't see in the Hooverville fog, maybe not even in Squander. Then the figure leaves. Uneasy, Paul Norsky returns home. And those are Monday's events. Now we step boldly into Tuesday. On screen are the current active vagrants character sheets. This is your status beginning Tuesday. And remember, there are no obligations. Feel free to drop in or drop out at any time. I can't promise we're going to do this every day for the entire week or the entire 5-turn session, but if you want to ensure your turn gets counted, try to get it in quickly. And now we'll take a moment just to discuss the game. If I favorite your turn, that means I have seen it and will plug it in. So in terms of narrative, 3 vagrants over the course of one day, 3 actions each, totals to a little over 1,000 words, and is a nice length. Shockingly coherent and not disastrous. I'm surprised that we've already built a bit of forward momentum, and it was able to come from a few different sources. And the vagrants have a nice spread of skills and drawbacks. 2 people taking the exact same action does not guarantee the exact same outcome. I realized I brushed over work, but I have some ideas of how that can be made a little more exciting. I'm also liking the vibe coming off the vagrants. Ellis Baker feels like Quasimodo Buddha. I feel a lot of peace in this grotesque nature spirit. I get a beatnik vibe off Alvar Vaughn. A musician, but someone whose life could have been very different, and not necessarily in a kindly way. And then you have Paul Norsky, and I'm getting thief vibes off him. Criminal but well-meaning, the walking contradiction. And cooking is a nice touch for this character. It accentuates that quiet pleasantness thing going on. And in terms of engagement, this is kind of what I was looking for. I put measures in place to deal with numbers if people really took to it, but starting small gives us the room to be attentive. And while I do have plans, if this continues to work out, for Cosmic Vagrancy to turn into the Black Massacre, once we've nailed down a rhythm and a tone, this system, or this role-playing system, could be something we just do sometimes. Thanks to my career, I am learning the value of advertising and edging people. There's nothing people like more than looking forward to an event. Maybe plan out more modules and then hammer them out over the course of a week, planned however long in advance. But we'll see. For now, we have kind of a plan. We're also kind of winging it, but it has been fun reading about Depression-era prices and laws and whatnot. For example, during Prohibition, I didn't realize you were allowed to own and consume alcohol. You just weren't allowed to buy and sell it. And it looks like, if I'm understanding it correctly, you could actually buy beer in certain cases. And there were wealthy groups that, before Prohibition came online, they bought years and years worth of alcohol. And for me, while I don't really study either, the interwar period and the Cold War are very neat in terms of the ways states were preparing for conflicts. But that is a completely different thing, and we are not going to ramble. Tune in next time for the next episode of the Homeless Chronicles. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.